operate throughout the world. Here in the United States, we got duped into voting for President Barack Obama, as opposed to Cynthia McKinney, who is 100% black and had an agenda specifically for the African American. President Barack Obama, in two elected terms, had no plan specifically for African Americans, and we identified him as black. The greatest gains out of President Barack Obama's administration came for the LGBTQ community, whereas we got shafted, and we're still getting shafted.
Yeah, my sister always dropping them jewels. And we can just go back a year or two ago when we had a prolific, famous Hollywood activist by the name of Jesse Williams. Many people rallied behind Jesse Williams and really believed that he was in favor of black people. In fact, that he was black because he had one black parent. Now, me personally, I don't subscribe to the one drop rule that makes you black, because that's a European construct to, exclude other groups, from whatever benefits may come with being associated with Europeans. But now with Jesse Williams, he was very prolific, articulate, rallied the masses of black people. They said he has a black girlfriend. And just because you lust behind black women doesn't automatically make you black, okay?
That's right.
I mean, if God made anything better than a black woman, he kept it for himself. But now,
got that right.
After Jesse Williams' black girlfriend, he dropped her and got a white girl. And we haven't heard nor hi or hear from Jesse Williams since. And this is the problem that we have with mulattoes. Now, I only go there because the past year or two, this is something that you have lived, something that you can research yourself. This is the same trick that we keep falling for that Sister Keisha is talking about. Because when you talk about Africans and Europeans and you look at the historical relationship, we've always been in conflict. We've always been in conflict since they've learned to walk and talk, since we've educated them, because we are the fathers and mothers of civilization. But now, when you deal with mulattoes, they keep talking about integration, where those of us who are African-centered are talking about separation, just for the time being, so that we can regroup and strategize a game plan for ourselves to become a superpower, like we've seen so many oppressed groups around the world have done. You take China. China was one of the poorest countries a few decades ago, just a few decades ago, and now has one of the second strongest world economies. I mean, they didn't sit back, rally, protest, and picket. What they did was strategize and did what's in the best interest for their group. And that's all we're saying about our black/African people. Let's do what's in our best interest. Mulattoes, they could do what's within their best interest. If they want to integrate with European society, by all means, you go ahead. But with straight black pride, we're pulling our resources together and putting our greatest minds together so that we can do what's in the best interest for ourselves and our children.
Now, I mentioned last week, and even though I asked Sister Keisha about some history to support it, she started out with contemporary items, but did go to history, as did you. I was interested in things that you could point out, like Plessy versus Ferguson, where that was a mulatto movement where they initially tried to get rights as mulattoes to separate themselves in New Orleans and Louisiana in general from blacks.
Correct.
And they failed in court, and that's when they went to the second strategy, which is to ride in a white railroad car, but let them know that they weren't white, which caused this Supreme Court case, separate but equal.
Well, this is nothing new, and that's why I talked about the mulatto movement today. They're doing the exact same thing. They want to separate themselves completely from us, but use a benefit of being so-called black.
Biracial.
Well, biracial.
Whatever,
right?
all this crap.
Right, biracial. And they prefer to be identified as that.
Right,
We
no
have
doubt.
no business
No such
claiming
thing.
it as our own. But you talked about Plessy versus Ferguson, but look at the Colin Kaepernick situation currently. Here is a man who is of a white mother and a black father who I believe he's never met. If I'm wrong, then I apologize for that. But he's never met he hasn't lived a black experience, and yet he's supposedly a champion for the movement. And all he did was blow out his afro and get on his knees. Well, that's the image of black men around the world. Get on your knees. Bow before me. So how is that revolutionary, and who is it benefiting? Has it done anything to alleviate the stresses of white supremacy or white aggression? Absolutely not. In fact, since he first took a knee, there has been a slew of murders against dark-skinned black people, not mulattoes. I believe only 2 murders happened with biracial young men.
Well, it's no such thing as biracial. Go ahead.
I'm just using the terminology.
Yeah.
Biracial young men, and my question is, where are their white parents? Where is the movement for their black children or their biracial children? You won't see it, you haven't seen it, you're not gonna see it. It's because they want them over to the white side, and to keep you calm and to keep you on your knees, begging.
Now, my question would be things like, because I think that they are examples to further support, you know, the position of straight black pride. I think you can look at the Dominican Republic, their treatment of Haitians.
Correct.
Because of their identity crisis they have. They don't call themselves black. They just as black as anybody else in any other island nation. However, they call themselves and believe that somehow distinctly because they have European blood in them as well as blood of Native Americans, and they have African blood in them. Somehow they acknowledge their mixture of maybe the Native American side and the white side, but disavow the African blood. Consequently, Trujillo, who was the president in the 1930s, he waged the war against that which he perceived to be black, killing very dark-skinned Dominicans, and of course the position was he was killing Haitians, and he did kill Haitians. Let's make that clear, and ran across that water that separates that little mountain water range that separates the Dominican Republic from Haiti. Gave them time to go across allegedly, and before they can get over there, he killed them, and because he was trying to picture the Dominican Republic as a European country and wanted white men, which did flock to the Dominican Republic for their women. And so Germans, people from the Netherlands, England, and what have you, all did come, Australians did come to the Dominican Republic because he sent this out all over the world to have them come in and enjoy his women because he wanted to whiten the women, which he was sort of successful at. So I'm just saying that to say, whether it's the Dominican Republic, whether it's Australia, there's an attack on black, certainly South America, Brazil, places like that. There's an attack on Africans, and to somehow in that process, while you're killing blacks, to highlight and uplift these mulatto communities and convince them that they're white so that they will not fight for, as you said, the original people, the indigenous people of whether it's Australia, whether it's in Brazil, what have you, because the original man is the black man, and we know that, and so certainly that just a note for you to consider.
Yes, sir.
And if you look at now with the MS-13 killings that have taken place around the country, in particular here in New York, the state of New York, these are people who identify themselves as Hispanic or mulatto, if you will. And who are they murdering? People who look like you and I.
Yes.
And this is on a street level.
Right.
And it's happening every day. And so we, as African black folks, are under attack from everyone, whether it's the Asian, the so-called Hispanic or Latino, and mulattoes, and of course the European.
And of course, we well know that going way back to slavery, obviously the white man had his pick. And well, actually, it goes back further. You can, as you could attest to, Tad, in Africa, you had the slave dungeons, and you had those governors, as they called themselves,
Right.
had the pick of the litter. Had the women separated from the men, had the pick of the litter before they even came to the shores of the Caribbean as well as North America. So this racial rapes that had occurred for centuries because white people don't go to jail for raping black women, and that's going on. As a matter of fact, a white youngster's rites of passage was that eventually his father would tell him, come on, let's go, and go into the slave quarters and tell him to pick one, and of course he would pick whoever he wanted to pick and break his son into what he should be doing as a man. So that all is historical, and certainly there were mulatto collaborators who told about insurrections and that did whatever to gain favor with his white fathers, even though they were still slaves. So there's a plethora of information to support what y'all are saying.
And look what's put before us right now. If you look at mainstream media, television today, even commercials, you see a whole plethora of mixed race couples in these commercials, on these television shows. You see them put before you as leaders of the black race, as if this is something that we should be proud of.
Are you trying to say that that's a plot?
Definitely.
Or is that
Absolutely.
accidental?
No, it's a plot.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's to give the false illusion that race relations are better here in America between blacks and whites. But then the question becomes, when has any of the issues that we have as African people with Europeans got resolved? It's funny, you use the word rape, and it's almost like when mulattoes talk about their European ancestry, they don't acknowledge that many of it is a product of rape. And it's almost bragging that you're a child of a rapist. Even if your immediate parent didn't necessarily force himself on your mother or vice versa. Nonetheless, when you look at the relationship historically, you'll see that the European loving and lusting after the African has always been a thing of theirs. They have these sick fetishes. And just to love a black person is not based on the spiritual aspect, but it's based on the fetish position. No different than someone having a foot fetish or a ear fetish. It's just something, just a sickness that they have.
Okay, we're gonna open up the phones, and hopefully, even though I know you might have some questions about law enforcement, hopefully we have more than enough calls that's gonna question them on their positions, and them meaning the Straight Black Pride New York chapter. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello.
Yes, you're on. Quick question or comment? Yes, welcome to Community Cop.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Okay.
I want to tell you something. You have no business having that Straight Black Pride, Keisha Forrester and Todd Cromwell on your program. How dare you allow these black people to be homophobic and talk about black women and black men who are gay the way they are. You look at you smiling, you idiot people, smiling at when I'm trying to tell you that you're an idiot to be on. And Mr. Gray, I am so hurt, and I will never look at your program again because you're an idiot too. If you support them, they have no business on your program.
Thank you for
what
the call.
What are you doing with them?
Okay.
What? Tell me.
Okay.
What are they telling you that you don't know already?
Okay.
And why are they talking about gay and lesbian people?
Okay, you asked the question, and I'm going to answer your question before we go to the next call. For the record, I think that they have a position that's uniquely black that should be heard. I believe that the same way gays force their positions onto what's convenient, what's naturally known as civil rights, they have made themselves a part of that equation. Is the same way that Straight Black Pride reserves the right to take their position and to say that the gay movement is not a part of the civil rights movement. Not only that, but the gay movement is destabilizing black freedom fighters and fighting against black freedom fighters. And Keisha mentioned last week a great leader in his own right, up and coming young leader, D. Seals from
Whose fault
Ferguson.
is that?
No,
if they're
stop
being
him.
destabilized because they are saying a lot of bullshit. That's why.
Cut that caller. His concerns have been duly noted. I'm answering your question. Why they on? Because they have the right to take that position, and you have the right to ask them a question. You chose to ask me a question. You should have asked them. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Oh,
Next caller, you're on the air.
yeah, hello. This is Lee from New York, Manhattan.
Okay,
Yeah, how you doing?
good.
Good.
Quick
good.
question or
First
comment?
of all, I'd like to commend you, Michael, for the show, and Father Lucas and all of the rest of the crew there. This is a beautiful program, and it should always be on. In fact, we should be on every night. But I'd like to make a few comments about the brother and sister there, Brother Todd and Sister Keisha.
His name is
I think
Tad,
they're
but go ahead.
beautiful. Their program is absolutely beautiful. The things they talk about are things that are essential for our people. In fact, them talking about Africa. Africa is very important to us. Ghana was one of the countries that first started to try to liberate our people. The people from there came here and visited, just like you mentioned, Dr. Clark, and all. They were very familiar with that.
And
One thing that's
Tad
really
himself,
happening today
Tad
that we
himself
have to
just
stick
came back
behind
from Africa,
is
by the way.
Zimbabwe.
Go ahead.
They
But
have-
Tad just came back from Africa. Go ahead.
I was fortunate enough to be there in January when they had a special election assembly in Zimbabwe, and the people there are absolutely beautiful. Their programs are beautiful. They're trying to pull things together, even with all the bad media news and everything they've got. We have to struggle to get them to release these sanctions, because sanctions are what's hurting the people, and they're not hurting the officials because they got the wherewithal to do things, but they're hurting the poor people, the children, and the women. We have to struggle with this country for them to release those devilish sanctions that they have against them.
Thank you, brother.
and I'm glad to
We got to
see-
go to the next caller. The board is full, but thank you for the kind words that you bestowed on Straight Black Pride. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Next
From
caller,
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, go.
Okay, Mike, I like the way you answered that person. And Straight Black Pride, you're absolutely right about light-skinned blacks, especially the leadership from Harlem. Charlie Ringo, Sutton, David and Basil Patterson, Deakins and Denny Farrell, all of them are light-skinned blacks, and all of them sold out Harlem to the whites.
Thank
and
you.
last week,
Go ahead, but
last week
I'll
y'all
just
was
say
talking
that.
about gays on TV.
Okay, but just
Okay,
want to
watch the
make
cable.
just want to make one
I'm gonna-
point. But we're gonna let you continue, brother. But just want to make one point. They have not taken a position against light-skinned black people. Now, all the people you mentioned are sellouts. However, they're not saying that if you light, now you're circumspect and they're gonna study you real hard and catch you and say, got you, because you're a mulatto. No, they're not looking at you phenotypically, that which you can see with your eyes. They're talking about something much deeper. Those who are selling
Yeah.
out are trying to destabilize the black community because of their allegiance to one of their parents. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about looking at very light-skinned black folks, and certainly while you're watching on TV, Tad is a light-skinned black person.
Yes, I
and
am.
he is taking
Yours
a
is
clear
lighter than
position
Tad.
against mulattoes. He's the one that brought it up. So,
Yes,
but
I
thank you for
understand
your
that.
concerns. Finish your
No, I
comment.
understand that.
Finish your
because
comment.
Adam Clayton Powell was light-skinned. Malcolm X was light-skinned.
That's
now,
right.
I'm talking about gays, especially on cable news, Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC. It seems like the commentators they get, the so-called experts on every subject, all of them, no, not all, say 80% of them look gay and they talk gay. Now,
That's
they
right.
get white gays on TV, but they don't be flaming gays. But the blacks they put on there are flaming. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you for the call, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Harlem.
Okay.
I have a question for your guest.
Sure.
Well, it's not really a question, it's a statement, but I want
Go
to
ahead.
get their opinion. You know, when we talk about mixed race and all like that, I've never yet in my life met a pure black American, if ever a creature exists.
Okay. That's legit. But I don't think that they're arguing that. I think that when they use standard tests and take our blood, you're not going to come back with 100% on any of us in North America. However, I don't think that they're trying to say that somehow the African American is purer than the mulatto. They're talking about what mulattoes movements have done in the past and what their intent is. So they mentioned Jesse Williams. He is a fraud. He's fake. He's disgusting. He used a great speech, and I agree with Ted that his words were sharp. He used the spoken word kind of way. Since he's an actor, he didn't come out hard swinging at white people. He talked about the obvious things about police brutality, black unarmed men being shot in the streets, and he was right. However, he left you there understanding that was something about him where you could see he wasn't legit. He kept on highlighting his mother. The camera kept going, highlighting his mother, and you just saw then that he wasn't legit, and it all came out later. He dumped his black girlfriend and running around with white women, which is the norm for him. So I think that they were trying to make a point. They were not talking about, again, light-skinned black people. I don't want anybody to leave with that misconception. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Next call, I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Okay.
Okay, going back to your first crash, Mike, that first call should go to hell. Because it's calls like that is why so many of our black people is walking around in the dark. Okay? And you think this straight flag come on your show because it could relate to all, especially to the younger people. Keep it going strong, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, the first caller is entitled to his opinion, but he won't let them have their opinion. That's the problem. He's entitled to what he believes, but he has a problem with what they believe. They believe in being straight, black, and proud. There's nothing wrong with that.
And you know, Mike, that's something because I thank the first caller for calling in, and just by tuning in and calling, your support validates who we are and what our position is. Because the thing is, many of these groups always want to have their say, and they don't want someone to get another word in edgewise, and they think their position is the only position, and we're not entitled to our position. Now, the whole thing with the homosexual phenomenon, I like to call it right now, is we got to remember that there was a time when black men walked around with signs that say, I am a man, I am a man. Why? Because white men called them boys. They looked at them as less than men. They didn't let us be assertive and define our life, have self-determination. But now they went from calling us boys to convincing black men that they are women. Look at Magic Johnson's son, EJ. Look at the actress Laverne Cox. I don't care what you say. Laverne Cox is a man with the wig on it. You are not going to convince me to call a transgender person a woman. If your mother calls you Ralph, your name is Ralph. I don't care how much makeup you put on. And if you want to be confused, that is your business. Please, let's be clear. I'm not knocking what decisions you make for your life. My position is that me and the people I care about, those of us that care about African sovereignty, we have a position that we're going to protect our elders, our women, and our children. And anything that contradicts our position is not allowed in our circle. It's just that simple. If you want to be gay, you can stay on Christopher Street and do your thing. By all means, you will not see Mr. Tad down there bothering you. However, whenever Straight Black Pride tries to have a family event with a husband, wife, and children, and we talk about what's necessary for a black family, you'll have two men in drags come up talking about, well, what about us? We are family. This is my husband. Two husbands. That's your business. Please, we're trying to make it clear and plain and simple. We're not using no big fancy words. We're just saying that we're concerned with the genocidal attacks that's happening with black people, and the attack has been ramped up and is so sophisticated now that it's done under the auspices of love. You can love who you want. That is your business. But when we're talking about African sovereignty, African liberation, where we're talking about creating jobs for our people, creating safe havens and protection from law enforcement and the likes, we're against crime in our community. We're against gang violence. We're against rape. We're against misogyny. We're against feminism.
Pedophilia.
We're against all forms of oppression. However, we are clear. So any level of confusion is not allowed within our circle, and that's just our position.
Just one quick thing I want to ask y'all. Can a white gay person be a racist?
Absolutely,
Yes.
they're the worst.
Of course.
Go ahead. Just make a quick point about that, and we'll go to the next caller.
Some of the policies that we have in the land today were enacted by gay white men and gay white women. In fact, when you look through the halls of Congress and through the Senate, you'd be surprised what's going on over there, but I'm not. And I wanted to also address the first caller. Let me be clear. Let me be frank. That person sounded as if they were older than the both of us. So first, as someone who's older and blatantly come on a show and attack people, that's a disgrace to you and your generation. So clean yourself up. That's number one. Number two, it isn't, and let me be clear, it isn't how you preserve yourself. 2 men, 2 women, having sexual relations does not procreate, cannot bring forth a child. That is self-genocide. That means you cut yourself off at the knee. So you, the caller who called in, if you are the only child in your family and if you are homosexual, guess what? The family ends with you. You have now done what white supremacists have been trying to do for generations. Now they've convinced us that we should do it to ourselves. We've always known gay people. We have never attacked any homosexual. Straight Black Pride hasn't attacked anyone. But it is those who are homophiles or who agree with this lifestyle who have always attacked us. As Brother Taz said, even at our private events, we have had members of Black Lives Matter and others just come in and run them up, just go on temper tantrums because they aren't invited. Go have your own thing over there and do your own thing over there. So that's what we sit on that.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, sir. Sorry from Kareem from Harlem, my hotel.
Hotep.
I want to speak about this here, brother. First of all, we got this so-called, y'all speaking about white supremacists and Nazis and all that. We have a Nazi and a white supremacist in the White House.
That's right.
And this Nazi and white supremacist is, and another thing is that a lot of our people have mixed blood in ourselves.
Right.
So we should be very careful on some of the things that we say, and we should, be more considerate. And it's good to have that conversation because I agree with what the Black Pride stands for, as far as not dealing with a man and a man, a woman and a woman, because as far as God is concerned, that is what our people and humankind should dwell in. And I think the conversation is very great, and everybody has their opinion, so we should deal with that. And brothers and sisters,
thank you, brother. And of course, you just acknowledged that their position with respect to being straight is biblical. I'm glad you pointed that out. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Harlem.
Go.
I want to pick up the straight black movement. I first came across it on Facebook and I follow it and things like that. The thing about these people is it's just an introduction. It's just a slippery slope into perversions and whatnot. They try and dress it up to say, oh, men and women loving each other. It's not a love thing, it's a lust thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it introduces you into pedophilia, bestiality, and all those other things. It's a slippery slope. Right now I'm in a program where I see all these gay brothers, and I'm like, where did these people come from? And I'm not against it, but knowing how it used to be and how it is now, this so-called acceptance thing is opening doors when in 10 or 20 years and whatnot, it wouldn't be nothing for your son to come home and introduce you to his boyfriend and his girlfriend. And also, people have to be aware of man love. and that's the North American Man Love Board Association and whatnot, where they're actively trying to pass legislation now to recognize pedophilia as a normal sexual activity between young kids and adults and whatnot. So like I said, this thing is a slippery slope. The people got to understand, once you even act like you don't, you're not with it, they're going to either accuse you of being a closeted homosexual, or they're just going to say that you just hate people, period, and whatnot. Just be aware of the technology that's going on. Glad to see y'all on there. Peace.
Thank you for the call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Ray, Brooklyn. How you doing, Keisha?
How you doing, Brother Ray?
Brother Ray.
Big Mike.
All right.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Not at all.
Remember that. Don't sweat the small stuff. It ain't nothing. Listen, Keisha, you said a very important statement. Everybody is against us. We are definitely at war. It's not just the Arugals. It's everybody else coming to the Terror Dome is against us. And I believe they're setting it up for another race riot. Now, one thing I am concerned about, it's a school up in the Bronx where they on
Quickly.
from the motherland, and the school is only open to immigrants. I have a real problem with that school in the Bronx supposed to be open to immigrants. Not anybody else, and then give the teacher an award. Listen, just don't sweat the small stuff. Keep doing what you're doing in straight black pride. Don't worry about it.
Okay, we're gonna. I know the board is full, but we have to give straight black pride some latitude to respond because the show is almost over. Just talk about so far the callers or anything that's on your mind that you didn't get a chance to say.
Let me just, and I'm glad the last two callers said what they said. You don't show me a homophile organization or so-called black organization that accepts any and everybody in. Where is your platform against pedophilia? You don't hear it. Where is the platform from the LGBTQ community about pedophilia? Where is it? That's because they are one and the same. And we have to be very careful when we accept lifestyles, agendas, and political platforms. Because merging the two X's us out. Right now, in the city of New York, LG or same-loving or same-gender-loving stories are now part of the curriculum. Show me what public school mandates African-centered education. Where? But you have a homosexual education. So what they do is they come in and they co-opt our movements. And we get lost in the sauce and pushed to the side. And often marginalized and disrespected. So we have to be very careful. We are not a hate group. We are a self-loving, black, African-centered group, clearly. And that is a problem for a lot of people. And this is why when you had your Black Power revolution and the so-called conscious revolution that came about in the 80s and the 90s, they are no more. Because you had no ethnic clauses and you let any and everybody in, and they came in and destabilized you, every movement.
Tad, your thoughts, because the show is almost over. Your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I concur with my sister, and I say that it's unfortunate that as black people, anytime we take a position to stand up and speak for ourselves and what's in our best interest, we get met with all kind of resistance. Now, when we're students of history, all three of us here, and people who support the straight black pride movement, but as y'all should know, that as Africans, we were brought here to be servants to other people. So now what happens is that we're supposed to accept the identity or lot that anyone forces upon us, and if any kind of resistance we put forth is met with aggression. And that's problematic within itself. To the first caller, anybody who has a problem with opposition, you really have to analyze, why do you feel this way about black people talking about preserving themselves? We're talking about just furthering our genealogy, furthering our legacies, introducing our children to all the greatness that as black people we've contributed to world history, not just American history, but world history we have done. I'm talking about from ancient civilizations with high technology and high spiritual sciences, just to the greatest cultural phenomenon right now called hip hop. All that came out of an African mind with an African tradition. So we just want to preserve our culture, not to infringe upon others, but unfortunately, when we speak for ourselves, we're told our position is wrong. So in calling us wrong, you're wrong within yourself.
Just want to end by saying that that question that was directed at me, I have no qualms about having Straight Black Pride, the New York chapter, on. I would have no problems if the irritated genie himself was on, because you would have got it worse if he was here.
Yes.
So now I would just say, let me just say in all seriousness that I love them and I respect their work. They are not a hate group. They are talking about loving themselves, loving the black family, preserving the black family, preserving African culture as it is. And so I have to respect that as a black man, love their work. Again, want to acknowledge certainly those who make the program go, Nat Wood, Veronica Kidd, Sheila Berry. I say again, as I've always said, black man, black woman, protect the black child. In the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, accept your own and be yourself. And that's what we need to do. Accept our own and be ourselves. They are accepting their own. They are being themselves. They are not apologizing to white people about being audaciously black. Certainly, Tad was right when he said that you can't define reality for them and act, out of your very own white supremacist character, telling black people how to act. If we in pain and we in a fight, damn it, you can't tell us how to fight. You can't tell us the rules of how to fight when you're using every weapon under the sun against us. If they want to fight their own particular way, you should be glad that they ain't going upside your head or nothing. Let's respect them as people of character and people that have a position. They've intellectually defended their position today. They have spiritually shown that the things that they're saying is consistent with the Bible, and I love them for that, and I respect the work of the Straight Black Pride movement. And with that, I say peace. Oh, that's live. That's the beauty of live TV. Hi, I'm your host today, Michael Graves, co-founder and member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And we have Father Lucas conducting ministerial duties. And certainly Julian Harper and Noel Leader is on community cop assignment. So welcome to a show. But we're blessed today that we have New York members of the Straight Black Pride movement here today. To my far right, Keisha Forrester.
Hello.
And to my immediate right, we have Brother Tad Cromwell.
Yes, sir.
So we welcome to another show. Certainly, live TV has its challenges, but we're here. So from the outset, we want to give you several things that we need to cover real quick. We're doing historical analysis of what's going on, and then what we do is we'll deal with contemporary issues, and boy, there's so many contemporary things that's out today. From the outset, let us I don't even have the right year in my book. Been rushing. From the outset, there are three things that we want to cover real quickly, because what I want to do is get to the Straight Black Pride, so you better understand what they're about, and instead of just dealing with all the issues, because I know there are a lot out there, but I want you to have a full understanding of what Straight Black Pride is about, because we had a caller several times ago when Sister Keisha was here, not the last time, the time before that, when she elucidated the philosophy and the position of Straight Black Pride. He said he will never call the show again. He didn't say he would stop looking, but he did say he would not call the show again. So from the outset, let us do what we normally do. And let's start with Ozzy. First of all, let's acknowledge Ozzy Thompson, our brother who, let me just say that when you walk this earth and you meet a lot of people, one of the nicest brothers you ever want to meet. Humble. Ozzie Thompson is the original community cop who died on this day in '06. He always said and would tell all of us that he never pulled his weapon, that he never had to use his weapon. And that's true because Ozzie, if Ozzie ever hugged you, you can't get out of his bear hug when he hugged you. And anytime he hugged you, it was like he hadn't saw you in a year. So such a warm, good brother, strong, upright. He was indicative of what the Harlem community, past and present, was about and should be about. Strong brother, worked his whole career in Harlem. And if you ever saw his hands, he had the biggest hands I've ever seen on a brother. So even though he didn't pull his gun, he had some hands. So if he had to straighten some young men out and show them the error of their ways, he didn't have to use his gun. If you know Ozzie. And Ozzie was a big man, much bigger than me and tall, and was about it. But he had a good heart, and that's something that you could boast about, that you never had to pull your weapon. And certainly he was in situations where he could have, and legally and department-wide could have utilized it. But that's the beauty of live TV. Hi, I'm your host today, Michael Graves, co-founder and member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And we have Father Lucas conducting ministerial duties, and certainly Julian Harper and Noel Leader is on community cop assignment. So welcome to a show, but we're blessed today that we have New York members of the Straight Black Pride movement here today. To my far right, Keisha Forrester.
Hello.
And to my immediate right, we have Brother Tad Cromwell.
Yes, sir.
So we welcome to another show. Certainly live TV has its challenges, but we're here. So from the outset, we want to give you several things that we need to cover real quick. We're doing historical analysis of what's going on, and then what we do is we'll deal with contemporary issues, and boy, there's so many contemporary things that's out today. From the outset, let us. I don't even have the right year in my book. Been rushing. From the outset, there are three things that we want to cover real quickly, because what I want to do is get to the Straight Black Pride, so you better understand what they're about, and instead of just dealing with all the issues, because I know there are a lot out there, but I want you to have a full understanding of what Straight Black Pride is about, because we had a caller several times ago when Sister Keisha was here, not the last time, the time before that, when she elucidated the philosophy and the position of Straight Black Pride. He said he will never call the show again. He didn't say he would stop looking, but he did say he would not call the show again. So from the outset, let us do what we normally do. And let's start with Ozzie. First of all, let's acknowledge Ozzie Thompson, a brother who, let me just say that when you walk this earth and you meet a lot of people, one of the nicest brothers you ever want to meet. Humble. Ozzie Thompson is the original community cop who died on this day in '06. He always said and would tell all of us that he never pulled his weapon, that he never had to use his weapon. And that's true because Ozzie, if Ozzie ever hugged you, you can't get out of his bear hug when he hugged you. And anytime he hugged you, it was like he hadn't saw you in a year. So such a warm, good brother, strong, upright. He was indicative of what the Harlem community, past and present, was about and should be about. Strong brother, worked his whole career in Harlem. And if you ever saw his hands, he had the biggest hands I've ever seen on a brother. So even though he didn't pull his gun, he had some hands. So if he had to straighten some young men out and showed them the error of their ways, he didn't have to use his gun. If you know Ozzy. And Ozzy was a big man, much bigger than me and tall, and was about it. But he had a good heart, and that's something that you could boast about, that you never had to pull your weapon. And certainly he was in situations where he could have, and legally and department-wide could have utilized it, but he chose not to, and that's why Harlem loved Ozzy so much. And I don't know if any of y'all ever met Ozzy.
I have.
You have?
Yes.
You have any memories of Ozzy?
Yeah, at actually it was at the parade a few years ago at the African American Day Parade
He was
in
always
Harlem.
there.
Yes.
Okay,
and I was
good.
walking, and he said, "Why you get so mean? Put a smile on your face." And I said, "Okay."
Yeah, no, Ozzy was that kind of guy. So from the outset, let me just get to the business at hand quickly. This is the anniversary of the Attica riots, and as you know, there's a boycott that might have just ended recently, but Attica was protesting everything from the food, the insensitivity with respect to religion, and certainly the conditions that was indicative of the Attica prison was reflective of so many other jails all over the country. So a lot of changes were made, and consent decrees issued because of those brothers took a valiant stand, and certainly had to pay for it. Anyone has memories of Attica or heard of stories with respect
Heard
to
of stories of Attica.
Yeah,
We were
heard
too
of
young.
stories. Yeah.
Right.
And I've avoided that place by all means and costs.
Well, I don't blame you. But them brothers fought the good
Yes, they
fight,
did.
and ultimately was able to get some justice in the form of consent decrees, and changed a lot of conditions that we find ever present in the jail system. But the second thing, real quickly, is the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. This is the anniversary. On the 15th, it will be the anniversary of what happened in '63. 4 little girls praying in the basement prior to the traditional church service was killed by Ku Klux Klan members who thought it manly of them to kill and get points for bombing a church. Birmingham was known as Bombingham to our folks. Any memories of that event, '63?
Yeah, what I can say is the work of Southern preachers at that time, like Fred Shuttlesworth and
Definitely, warrior.
Reverend Herbert Oliver and others, who worked diligently to bring attention to what was going on in Birmingham, and led successful protests that has been steadfast to this day. It's held them down to this day. Their protests that they led in Alabama.
That's right. And quickly, if Ted, you want to add to that?
Yeah, when I think of the 4 little girls, there's one of the girls particular come to mind, and that's Adam Collins.
Why don't you read all the names, brother?
All right.
The names are right there. Read all the names.
All right. Now, some of the people that were murdered or hurt in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing was Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robinson, Adam A. Collins, Denise McNair. All of these
And
children.
their ages.
Under 15. Cynthia was 14, Carol was 14, Adam A. was 14, and little Denise was 11 years old, the same age as my baby. Now, with Adam A. Collins, that name always stuck out to me because in the book Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, she talked about what happened during our enslavement and the medical field's participation in the institution of slavery. And she brought it up to contemporary times. But when she spoke of body snatchers, she brought up Adam A. Collins. And she purported that during the bombing, we had segregated cemeteries. So Adam A. Collins was buried in the black-only cemetery. Her family had a hard time visiting the cemetery. So as time went on, I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s, they transferred her to the unkempt black cemetery, to a more better kept cemetery, only to find that the young girl's body was missing and was never recovered. And every time we commemorate these children, we never talk about the bodies missing. Because as we fast forward to today and we talk about organs harvesting and we talk about the tens of thousands of missing black people annually, that's something that's always left out of the conversation. So that always jumps out at me anytime I hear about the 4 little girls.
And which one was missing? The one, Adame?
Adame Collins.
Okay.
And
I'll have
my
to
source
remember
is
that.
Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington.
Okay. Now, the last one, maybe Keisha might remember it because I spoke about it quite often at United African Movement, the Sweet Trial. I don't know if you remember that one. That's the one in 1925, a black physician moved to a section of Detroit, Michigan, that was all white. And he received prior warnings that he was not welcome there, but he chose to move there anyway. And of course, what happened is that after vandalizing the property several times as a warning, and he did not run and take flight to another house, he insisted on living there. They set up a shop and told him that they was going to kill him, and of course he got his brothers and some friends, and they ultimately led to a shootout where a few of the whites were killed in that process. Now we talking about 1925, and he actually took it to trial because they were actually charged. Sweet, his brothers, as well as his brother's friends and all of them, they were all charged for shooting back, and it went to a long trial, but to cut it short, they won. They won that trial in 1925. You know, they had the attorneys all in line, and this went all over the world that these black men shot back. And we're going to visit some of your thinking on that whole process of self-defense later on. But any comments on that? I know you.
It's funny that you bring up this story because I was watching last night a documentary on the uprising after the murder of Trayvon Martin last night on BET. And one of the things that deeply disturbed me was a comment made by attorney Benjamin Crump. And he said, and I quote, "Justice will not come by way of the courtroom, but to change the mind of society," which is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It's utterly ridiculous. And for him to be a civil rights attorney, to outright tell millions of viewers that they cannot get justice through the courtroom. So what are you there for? And apparently he didn't know the story of these young men.
Right, well, he's not a real civil rights attorney. He's a negotiator. He's a person that travels, and he's actually one of the cases we're going to talk about. He's the attorney too, surprise, surprise. And in this particular instance, what he does at all times is he negotiates. He doesn't even bother ever going to a courtroom. It's negotiated outside of court. And they welcome him in, by the way, so you'll be clear on what his real role is. Benjamin Crump is an attorney that comes under the National Action Network. They travel all over. They have a partnership, him and Reverend Sharpton, and he goes from city to city, and he will never even make a move to put any police officers who were involved in dirty shootings in jail. All he wants to do is negotiate how many millions are you willing to give up for this to go away. He will not go after the police department. He's not going for any changes. All he wants to do is get a check for the family, and of course he gets a third of that. So that's the process, and that's what he does, and that's why they welcome him as opposed to somebody who might be less manageable. They know all he wants is a check. He will stop all the marching and demonstrating after a while. He'll have the family put out a plea to go home because the city does not want that, and certainly when all is said and done, they cut a check, he gets his cut, and he moves on to the next incident. And that's his role. And so I know that Sister Keisha was using that term facetiously when she called him a civil rights attorney. He's not a civil rights attorney. He's disgusting, and it flies in the face of so many great civil rights attorneys that we've had in the past, because he's certainly not one. He did nothing in Ferguson. He did nothing. All the places he's been, he didn't even venture to get the police officer's name, Wilson, in the Michael Brown shooting. And even when people were being arrested for being assembled on street corners, he did not try to get any of them out of jail. He was strictly there for one thing, to get a check. And he did nothing, and it took others to come forward and get some semblance of justice, some semblance of order, and to get that order about if you assemble for more than 5 seconds. They got that vacated. No help from him. So he's not a civil rights attorney. He's the worst aspect of what we think of lawyers. But let's move quickly to present day things. We have. We'll talk about the biggest thing last. Let's go with the police officer who was charged with first-degree murder for killing the black man in the apartment. I guess we'll do that first. As you well know, there was a police officer. We'll do that. We'll save that. Let's go to the police officer who killed David Jones, who's black, and he was pulled over, and all he had was a dirt bike, and the police allegedly pulled him over for a traffic violation, and he ultimately ended up shooting him as he was running away. The police officer shot him, and that's where that case stands now. I don't know if you saw the video, but the video shows him running, and now he's been indicted because he claimed that he was trying to protect himself and he feared for his life. But the video clearly shows the black man just running away, trying to separate away from him, and he would have shot him at close range, but his gun jammed momentarily, and when he got control of it, he was about 25 feet away, and he opened up and shot him several times.
Well, we had six federally appointed commissions under President Barack Obama, under two black attorney generals. And they came back, the two of them, along with the reports of the 6 commissions, that although these police departments are infested with racism, there is nothing they can do. It's too large of a feat. That is the words of Attorney General Eric Holder.
Well, somebody needs to tell Eric Holder that the longest distance to travel begins with the first step.
Exactly.
So when you are the top law enforcement person in the world, that is a real cop-out to say because departments are so infested with white supremacy that somehow it's too big a job to handle, so you act like it don't exist. It makes no sense.
Right. I find that to be insulting. They're telling us basically that we should wait our turn to be murdered.
Pretty much. And it is an assault to our intelligence, particularly under a quote-unquote black administration at the moment with Barack Obama and Eric Holder. This is something that we have been fighting as a people since the moment we came here. Some people know the history of law enforcement in terms of how law enforcement was created, because the early settlers, they pretty much policed themselves. Right. It only developed out of the slave culture with deputized slave catchers, people who were very illiterate, who pretty much just had a jealousy of who we are, inherently, naturally, who we are. So there's an undertone, well, not even an undertone, there's an overt racism that exists within so many people of European ancestry within the police department. You know, I'm appreciative for your organization, 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, because as we know, some of our brothers may hate law enforcement, but I always remind them, if it wasn't for the black cops that are in it to truly help our community, think how many more brothers would be murdered, because this has always been a problem, on top of other problems in terms of nutritional, educational, but with this police system, and as you said, the top cop, Eric Holder, the top cop, pretty much in essence said, I'm just not going to do my job.
Right, and
the bottom line.
what Ted was talking about historically is that when you look at it in relative terms, the slave catchers, they became police officers, and the slave overseers, they became correction officers. So you have that blend of the same role in today's terms, but it's just called a different phenomena. So sheriffs are a blending of both, sheriffs are a blending of both, but the overseers are actually correction officers. And to this day, the slave catchers who manned roads and stopped everybody and raised questions, those are actually police departments now. So historically, that's what Ted is talking about. Real quickly, before we get to the main one, in Baltimore, and this is something that I'm thankful that Sister Keisha that sent me, during this trial with the elite gun trace unit, there was testimony from a detective, Maurice Ward, who elucidated in court in testimony, said that they were directed to carry what we would call throwaways, but these were fake guns, BB guns, replicas of guns, to use just in case you shoot somebody. You can account for your actions better by placing a gun on them and saying that your life was in danger. And the sergeant, and the reason why I want the sergeant's name, who directed them, is because he was the same sergeant who Detective Suter was going to testify against that next day when he was killed over a year ago. Now the sergeant's name is Jenkins, Wayne Jenkins. He was the one who held out. Now there are 8 people that are on trial, and several of them have already pleaded guilty. But he was among the holdouts, and Detective Suter was going to testify in front of a federal grand jury, and he was mysteriously killed the day before. And now the police department can't tell you who did it. Where the partner, his steady partner, wasn't with him that day. They had another person who was with him that day, and that person, on the video footage, was across the street, hiding behind a car and a tree while he was shot. And he described a scuffle, that there was a fight, and certainly Detective Suter clothes indicate he was involved in a fight. But he was shot with his own weapon, and he was shot in the back of the head. So now they're trying to say it was a suicide. But if you look at the back of his head, and the bullet's entrance was behind the head, but went straight forward to his brain, it's uncomfortable. You don't kill yourself like that. Most of the time, you go straight to the temple or in the mouth or under the throat, something like that. But to go on a very uncomfortable angle, it made no sense. And the person who allegedly had on a white and black jacket, now that's disappeared, and they're trying to call it a suicide. So they're giving you information. A lot of information is coming out at this trial, but nothing about Detective Suter, which they're trying to hope you forget. Any thoughts on that before we get to the main thing?
Black people should never forget. And these are not isolated incidents. These are things that have always happened. They will continue to happen until we defend ourselves. And that is by any means necessary, because, as I just mentioned, you had 2 attorney generals tell you there is nothing that they can do for us, that they refuse, as Tad said, to do their job. You had a
Who was the second one?
Loretta Lynch.
I knew it was. I just 2 blacks now.
They told
a black
us.
man and a black woman.
That's right. They told us. They can't be down with straight black pride. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Right.
So they told us there's nothing that they can do for us. You have all of these incidents that are happening all across the country, and no justice is being given. It's just lip service. So I'm asking the black populace, when are we going to be tired of lip service and defend ourselves at all costs?
Now, Loretta Lynch obviously took over when Eric Holder stepped down. Now, Eric Holder did get to make this part of a federal mandate that all police departments keep records, so that when asked by federal officers will come in and want to know how many people have been shot by police officers and what's the breakdown with respect to race. He did have that done. However, as soon as Loretta Lynch came in, she told all police departments that they did not have to do that. She referred to keeping records of who's killed. Her term was minutia. That is minutia, and don't worry about that. So you're talking about a real sellout. I mean, you can't get more disgusting than Loretta Lynch. But very quickly, let's get to the situation that I know people want discussed. The white police officer, white female police officer that allegedly, and I'll let our guests really handle this, that allegedly went into the wrong apartment and ended up ultimately shooting a black man who was in his own residence, who was not in the commission of a crime. Y'all could take that from there. Your thoughts?
The murder of, I think his name is Botham Jean.
Right.
The murder of this brother. You know, when she first came out and said, you know, she was a little tipsy or whatever, and she put the key in the wrong door, that makes absolutely no sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that passed the smell test with the department, even though I believe it was the chief. She said that there will be further investigation and that this woman will be arrested. However, I can guarantee you, it doesn't matter if she's arrested, if she's held, if it's ignored. They're going to find some way to get this white woman not to go to prison. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I do see people posting on various social media sites that she knew this brother. She worked with him, possibly dated him. There are photographs of her with him. So I don't understand how it is that she did not recognize him. Now, either she lost sight when she opened that door or she's a liar.
Well, we know them to historically be liars. Rest in peace, Emmett Till.
Right.
And what the whole story does stink, sis, because from its inception, as we do know, she did know him. Mm-hmm. To get in an apartment with the wrong key, how does that happen? How did you even get into his apartment? And in fact, I even saw a picture that law enforcement that live in that building also have a special lock where you have a keypad. Correct. On your lock, not just the key, but a keypad and the key. Mm-hmm. So just by looking at the door, you know that's not your apartment, part one. Part two, she went there because we know she had an intent to murder him because she went to someone else's apartment, but she had a uniform on and then called it in as an officer-involved shooting to insinuate as if she was on the job doing her duties and she had to take somebody down. So the whole thing does stink. But again, this is who they are, particularly white women. You know, they have this thing of just lying on black men. And rest in peace, Brother Botham. And not to be insensitive, but if he'd have watched Get Out, he would have known a long time, distance yourself from this woman. Distance yourself. Mm-hmm. Because they mean us no good.
Well, here's what, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. These are just some contradictions. From the outset, the door was locked. Then the door, she utilized a key system that Ted described to get in, and then ultimately she went with the door was ajar. So she has lied 3 times inside of 3 days. In between that Thursday, Friday, and by Monday, she had lied so many different times, she's changing the story. Let's go with some of the contradictions real quick. They saying that the apartment was almost totally, completely dark. Why would they say that? I want y'all to put on your thinking caps now. Y'all been watching the show for a while. Why would they say the apartment was almost dark? I'm gonna let you marinate on that for a minute. And then they said that she thought that she had just encountered a burglar. I want you to think about that one too. These are all rationales. It's going to all make sense in a minute. The third one, she's saying that he ignored verbal commands. So she in the dark giving verbal commands now. She's scared for her life. She's in total darkness giving verbal commands as if she could see if he's following those demands if the place is dark. So just think about that. Now, the door, it reports that the door, he ignored verbal commands. So she in the dark giving verbal commands now. She's scared for her life. She's in total darkness giving verbal commands as if she could see if he's following those demands if the place is dark. So just think about that. Now, the door, it reports that the door was slightly ajar, which contradicts with her initially saying the door was locked and that she unlocked the door. And then the contradiction is just that when you're in law enforcement, either the door was locked or it's unlocked. And it's either ajar or it's closed. You don't make those kind of mistakes except if you're lying to cover for yourself. And then let's just say that she said she saw a large silhouette. This is the sympathy part. Because when you see a silhouette in the dark, first of all, if you're in the darkness, how do you have a silhouette? I'm just asking questions. I know what an investigation looks like. How do you have a silhouette in the dark except if there's a light background? That's the only way. Because if you're in darkness, there's no shadow cast. So you can only see a silhouette if that person walks in front of, let's say, a window where there's some light coming from. But she said it was almost totally dark. So how do you get a silhouette? Now, let's go back to the darkness. The reason why she's saying it was dark in there is because she wants to say, I shot him, but I didn't see that he was black. In other words, she wants to take race out of the equation. That's why she's saying it was darkness. Now, she didn't come up with this alone. You have to remember, the crime scene was controlled by Dallas PD. We don't know where he was shot at. Now, how do you get that far into an apartment where you are confronted by somebody and you not recognize that that you in the wrong apartment? Most people, when they walk into a dark room, what do? What do you do when there's a dark room?
Turn the light on.
You click a light on. You click to your left, to your right, it's a light somewhere. You know what I mean? If they got that clap on thing, well, you do the clap on thing. But you don't continue proceeding into a dark apartment,
Correct.
Especially when you just did a tour of duty. In other words, you've been out of your house for well over 8 hours. So you're going to click something on. So she's just trying to take race out of the equation by saying it was dark. And I'll just say there's some other contradictions. Then when you get into the other parts, witnesses' accounts that they heard a woman saying, let me in, let me in. She's banging on the door. Nobody came to the door. And you hear her saying, let me in, let me in. And then you hear a man, after the shots were fired, you hear a man saying, oh my God, why did you shoot me? Now, I'll stop right there. Your comments on, your comments.
I'm at a loss for words. I didn't know about her banging on the door.
Yeah, she banged on the door, according to an independent witness. Said she was banging on the door, saying, let me in. She said it at least twice.
Right. But if it's your apartment, why the need to bang on the door?
If it's your apartment, you should be able to get in your own apartment.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I mean,
Nothing
you
but
talking
white
about
women
once
lying.
you start lying? I mean, look, now you know how Officer Shelby in Oklahoma,
Correct.
when she killed the black man,
Terrence
she
Crutcher.
was, Crutcher.
Yes.
She was surrounded by 3 other police officers who was walking with her, as well as her husband, who was in a helicopter. When the black man who was trying to get help, he was not in the commission of a crime. All he was trying to do was get some help. His car broke down in the middle of the road, and he walked toward the police officers. She demanded that he turn around and walk back to his car. So she was acting as if he was in the commission of a crime and she was taking charge. Okay, he goes back to his car, put his hands on the window. She's the only one that unholstered her weapon and shot him. The other 3 cops, all guns were holstered. Her husband had told her before she shot him, watch yourself, that's a bad dude. He said that from the helicopter.
That's
now,
right.
He must have superhuman powers to be in a helicopter telling her this man is a bad dude. So in any event, you get that contradiction. And then when you look at Sandra Bland, you look at Corinne Gaines, look at Rekia Boyd, all killed by law enforcement. None of them were in the commission of a crime. But I've said that to say that you do not have to be committing a crime to be killed. So you can put the telephone number up on the board. But in any event, your thoughts about that, the whole concept of being able to kill a person that's not in the commission of a crime. This person was in their house, but certainly Sandra Bland was just driving a car. There was not even a traffic infraction. Everybody pulls to the right when an emergency vehicle comes behind you. I had a discussion that somebody said the other day that, well, there was a traffic infraction. There was none. Everybody pulls to the right, and who signals
just to get out.
You just try to as
vehicle
soon
away.
as you can. An emergency vehicles coming. That's if the ambulance, police, fire. You pull to the right as soon as possible in all 50 states. So there was no infraction.
And this is one of the reasons why our young brothers run the moment a police officer approached them, because we never know how this situation is going to end. And as you said, not even in a commission of a crime. You know, no felonies committed. Rest in peace to the young brother Ramarley Graham, because for a bag of weed, he was murdered in his grandmother's bathroom. And this is why so many times young brothers don't have a trust of law enforcement, particularly white ones. Brothers, we may stop, you know, and talk. You know, if it's a black cop, you may stop and talk, maybe have some resemblance of my uncle, my father, whatever. We understand one another. But when it comes to white cops, and a lot of times they don't understand, their whole approach is aggressive. So if you're coming to me like you want to fight and you want a problem, why should I stick around knowing that time and time and time again that a routine stop could end in murder?
Well, we're gonna take a few phone calls because I want you to understand the philosophy from their perspective with respect to what Straight Black Pride is about. But first caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Go.
Okay, I want to talk about affirmative action and minority set-aside program.
Right.
This has been bothering me for years. I see people come here from China, India, Dominican Republic, Korea, and all of them benefit from affirmative action and minority set-aside program. I think it's wrong because affirmative action was supposed to be for descendants of enslaved Africans. And these people were not slaves in America. Their descendants was not enslaved in America. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you for the call. I think that your point is well taken, that initially 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were designed, these things that happened right after the Civil War were designed supposedly to benefit us, but ultimately other people benefited from it. And to this day, affirmative action has benefited white women more than it has black men and women. So ultimately, your point is well taken. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Go.
Okay, Mike, where that's going back to the shooting, where the guy got killed in the hotel. The DA is black female of that county. Now, I don't know whether that makes any difference or not, but she was on TV and she's black. She's going to get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
All right. Does it make a difference?
No.
If a district attorney is black?
No, has no difference whatsoever. And as I can guarantee you, she's going to toe the line. She may pretend that if, because you know black folks, we like that talk. So she's going to pretend that we're going to get something done, but in reality, it's going to be the same result. No justice at all. And as the brother said who called in earlier, he was talking about affirmative action and set-asides for other ethnic groups. The problem is, brother, that we as voters do not put demands on those who are elected to office.
That's right.
That they have to state the line that these programs are for black people only and not this people of color. Rainbow,
Right.
they like to put you in. So from this day forward, never use that term, people of color. We
That's
want
right.
things for black people and black people only.
That's right. That's right. Certainly. And while the callers are holding on, tell me, give me the philosophy and the statutes by which straight black pride stand on.
All right, well, some of the statutes and qualifications to join straight black pride is first you have to be straight, you have to be black, and you have to be proud of your heritage. We come from the greatest group of people on the planet, and I say that with no apology. And when we talk about straight, what we're doing is fighting this homosexual agenda. As you constantly talk about on this show week after week, the injustices that's perpetuated against our people. But so we know for time since we've been here, there's always been a genocidal attack against our people. But we haven't been astute enough to recognize what's the new attack. The new attack is the promotion of homosexuality. They are convincing our people not only to not marry one another, but not even to reproduce. When you talk to our young people now, they don't even want children, let alone do they even want someone of the same sex. So we see this time and time again in media. When you watch almost any television show, any movie, if they do have someone with an alternative lifestyle, 9 times out of 10, they're black people. This is a suggestive programming.
So you're saying that this is a plot?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
And you're saying that somehow this will destabilize the black family?
That's exactly what it did. Even when you look at Howard Zinn's book, The History of a People of the United States, when he talked about our enslavement, he said one thing that the white people understood what happened to us and what kept us strong was our family unit. And so the white people said, you know what, if we could destroy the family unit, we could totally break these people and destabilize their resilience to bounce back. And in fact, just for looking for the family, that's where the culture of standing on corners came from, because even when they split us up during slavery, after Emancipation Proclamation, people hung out in the old plantation areas, particularly by the general stores.
Right.
This is why you see brothers standing on the stores now. And then they asked, do you know what happened to this person that was on this plantation? And people went
Right.
back looking for their family in an attempt to reunite their family. Even with Harriet Tubman's sojourn on freeing our people, it started with just her family, with her father,
Right.
her mother, her siblings. But once she made it and seen that more families needed to be saved, she kept continuing to do the work. You know, so family has always been the nucleus for black people. That has always been our foundation. But now the Europeans are looking for a way to destabilize that stronghold that we have.
Now, you use the term that I just heard that's very, very important, and I need you to qualify. You said culture. Is homosexuality against African culture? Is it counter to African
Yes,
culture?
it is. Yes, it is. I'm not saying that it did not exist.
Right.
I'm not saying that it did not exist, but it was nothing that was celebrated nor supported. And it was something that was countercultural in an African aspect. Same way as it was in our community as Africans here in America. And I always tell people, we've always known gay people growing up. Nobody went around beating them up unless they did something that was in violation. But what we see now, and me personally, and I'm quite sure I can speak for Sister Keisha, our position isn't to go around beating up gay people or trying to kill gay people. You know, that's not our position. But what we are doing is stopping this attempt to effeminize our young boys and masculinize our younger. Is that a word, masculinize? You know what I mean.
Emasculate. Emasculate.
It is today. No, I'm talking about making our little girls masculine.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, so we see that there's a concerted effort. How do we know this? In the institutions of higher learning, we see this. Now they're bringing transvestites and the likes into public libraries and the public schools to talk about a homosexual culture. Now, me as a father, I think there's a certain age that you should have a conversation about sex with your child. You know, I think about adolescents or pubescents, you start talking about it with your child. But at 5 and 6 years old, I shouldn't be having a conversation about sex with my child, nor should the school, particularly sex that's counter our family value system. And we see that's what's going on. Pre-K, kindergarten, first graders are now being taught about homosexuality. But now we know children are always curious. So what's going to stop them from trying to experiment, particularly if you're telling boy on boy is okay? When two little boys in the bathroom, they're going to want to experiment because they were just in the class last period told that this was okay. And once you engage in that culture and lifestyle, it's very hard to go back. People talk about the suicide rate amongst gay people, but they don't talk about the guilt and the shame that a lot of people feel when they really think about how were they exposed to this lifestyle.
Now, one thing you said that I have to appreciate, you said that you're not saying that it never existed in Africa. You're saying that Africa did not highlight that or appreciate that the understanding was you going against the culture.
Yes.
It's just like if somebody is stealing, you're going against the cultural norms in Africa, where they African philosophy, especially Kemetic philosophy, talks about your heart has to be light as a feather.
Right.
And that so when you do something outside of that, is condemned. So, where as opposed to Greece and other places where a person showed off their wealth by how many little boys they had.
Yes.
And when they brought over guests, they gave the little boys to the guests as a way of showing your wealth. So you're saying that type of activity never happened in African culture, where you highlighted homosexuality was always something that if it existed, it was not appreciated.
It was looked down upon and it was shunned. And even to this day, I just came back from Africa, was it last month? And they don't appreciate it, they don't support it. They see that it's a European thing. They see it's a European lifestyle and culture, and they're trying to penetrate the continent with this deviant behavior, because in Africa, family is always celebrated.
I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let's take a call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes. Can I make a comment?
Sure, quickly.
Yeah, I was watching that thing about that brother was murdered in Texas, which I find very interesting. That I didn't know that cop was that brother's that white woman was that brother's lover. The Texas Rangers has gotten involved in that case, which is very
They did the investigation.
Interesting.
They did.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers.
They did the investigation, which
and,
really was a
and
conversation.
I think the DA called for manslaughter. Now, whether or not she's going to get prosecuted, I don't know.
Well, just remember, Dallas controlled the crime scene. The Texas Rangers came in to do the interview. The poison pill in all this is the Texas Rangers, because they can give cover to her, because they're the ones that came out with these scenarios in terms of the dark room, in terms of the door being ajar. All this is coming from the Texas Rangers, because she can turn around tomorrow if she sees that all of this is a contradiction. She can come out and tell her own unspoken truth. She can make up something else and just dismiss what the Texas Rangers are saying. But they did the interview. It wasn't really nothing to investigate. Whatever investigation occurred of the crime scene was done by Dallas police officers. They were the ones, Texas Rangers were the ones who interviewed her. There's a difference. So we don't know, where was he killed at? Was he killed in the bathroom? Was he killed in the living room? Was he in his bedroom? We don't know that, because the scene was controlled by her fellow officers that she worked with in the Dallas Police Department. And that's very, very important to know.
Yeah, I heard the black community in Texas was marching out there. They were in uproar.
Yeah, no doubt about it, because they have witnesses conflicting. Next caller.
Okay,
welcome.
I'm out.
All right, good. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Thanks for the call. Next caller.
Maurice from the Bronx.
All right.
Retired city and state correction officer, Brother Mike.
Yes, sir.
The NYPD just impaneled retired federal judge. He's African American, and the two females. They're calling it an oversight. I disagree. The essential criteria for an oversight is to substantiate and unsubstantiate police complaints and shootings, such as the CCR
Yes,
of
sir.
which I went to down there on Richter Street twice, and my grievance against the NYPD was dismissed. What needs to be done, Brother Mike, is the fact that we got to pull our votes together. And by the way, I'm a DC 37 union.
Yes, sir.
Former union member.
Okay.
I worked in the Brooklyn House of Detention, 375 Atlantic Avenue for 3 years. That's why I know Deb Thomas. Well, he was CEO, the Kim CEO, and I was working up there as a correction counselor. He said what needs to be done, Brother
Quickly,
Mike,
brother,
is the fact
quickly.
that the Inspector General gives suggestions just like this in panel that just was started.
We got it, brother. We got it, brother.
Investigation.
We got it, brother.
They need.
Brother, we got to go to the next call, but thank you for that information. And of course, that shows you how one law enforcement agency can cover for the other one, give air cover to the other one. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Can you hear me?
Yes, quickly, because I want to go back to straight black pride.
Okay, well, the thing is can you hear me?
Yes.
It appears to me from where I'm sitting that gay blacks of this generation, of the new generation, are the new leaders of the blacks. The Black Lives Matter are all gay, and I believe that if Trayvon Martin had been a gay black man, I think that George Zimmerman would be in jail. I'm not saying that I created that, but that's the way it looks to me.
And they're going to respond.
Gay blacks are the new leaders.
Thank you for your call, Sister Keisha.
Just the mere fact of you saying that does our movement a disservice, and we have to stop that rhetoric. It is us who put these people in positions of leadership because we have never been trained ethically that no person of a homosexual persuasion should be in leadership of any black organization. It is anti-revolutionary. It is anti-black family. So we have to change how we identify leaders. Shout out and peace be upon King D. Seals, who started the revolution in Ferguson, and he warned us.
He was killed last week.
No, last couple of years.
Yeah.
He was shot in the
last
head.
week.
And yes, the day, right. Shot in the head and burned. But and he warned us about Black Lives Matter, their agenda, and their platform. But because we, as a people, as a voting public, as a society within a society, refuse to put sanctions and ethnic clauses on black leadership. And that's what Straight Black Pride is here for. We putting ethical clauses on every black grassroots organization in the United States of America, and we mean just that.
And I want to piggyback real quick. Shout out to our brother D. Seals. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was down there. It was with Bayard Rustin, who was the self-proclaimed civil rights pioneer in the background. But what many people don't realize is that he coined the phrase that gay is the new black, influenced by his love of Walter Nagel, who he had adopted, actually. He was the one who convinced Bayard Rustin to take his political celebrity and turn the black movement into a homosexual movement and promote for the rights of gay people. It was Walter Nagel, a white man.
And pedophilia.
Yes.
Bayard Rustin was a pedophile.
Right, and certainly, again, I, along with you, salute Seals, Brother Seals, because this brother was strong in Ferguson. The police stopped him and told him this is easy. You know, this could go down at any time. And he was found, of course, in a burning car with a bullet in his head. So suffice it to say, it was suspicious. And yeah, it was about 7 that occurred within right after each other. You know, and he was one of the leaders. And certainly, that movement was co-opted, as was what happened with Trayvon Martin was co-opted by a gay lesbian movement, which is commonly known as Black Lives Matter. They co-opted both movements, and if they had one sign out there, the media focused on that one sign and ignored the great leaders, you know, like D. Seals and so many others who were standing for truth and wanted real justice for Michael Brown. Want to go to you real quick. I know we got callers, but I got to ask you about interracial dating. What's Straight Black's Pride position with respect to interracial dating? Because I think when you started out, you said a black man should be with a black woman and vice versa. What do you think of interracial dating?
Obviously, that is a part of our tradition. It is a part of our culture. It is how we maintain ourselves. If you continue to bleed the race out, we will no longer exist. You were put in this world with a black, I'm talking to the brothers, you were put in this world to mate with a black woman and should remain as such. Otherwise, we are throwing our race to the wind. We are bleeding ourselves out. And they, the mulatto, have also co-opted every movement that we have amassed here in this country.
Well, we're gonna have to. Last caller, welcome. We gotta talk about that. We're gonna have to do this again.
Brother Ray Ray, how you doing, Big Mike?
Oh,
Keisha
brother.
and Tad, y'all doing an excellent job.
Trying.
I just want to ask a quick question. Did you say that the brother in Dallas was dating that police officer?
It is possible. They are in compromising photos together that have been circling online for the past few days.
Well, then it sounds like murder to me. You're doing an excellent job. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you very much, Straight Black Pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
Straight Black Pride.
Let's start with closing comments. Brother Tad.
Hopefully tonight people understand, just get a little glimpse of what Straight Black Pride is about. We're not a hate group. In fact, we're focused on love. We're focused on the love of our ancestors, our elders, our women for the brothers, and our children. We have to, by all means, we have to stick together, start supporting our own business, and do what's in our best interest. So hopefully some of the things that we said here today inspired you. So hopefully you go out and inspire others. Stay up, stay blessed, stay true.
Sister Keisha.
Thank you again, Community Cop, for inviting us. We look forward to coming again to elaborate more on the Straight Black Pride movement, in particular how we hone in on the black family and the need for self-defense at all costs. I remember last week on your show, brother, people asked about the nail salons that they can go to that are black owned. There is the Nail Boutique on Fulton Street, the Nail Bed on Flatbush Avenue, the Nail Bell on Malcolm X, and Free Age Beauty Studio on Sterling. You all have smartphones. It is no reason that Community Cop have to give you a list of black owned businesses. When you need something, you Google it. Black owned near me nail salon, black owned near me restaurant, black owned near me grocery store. And it's that simple. We can continue to do business with each other, and we must continue to do business with each other so that we can truly build a black nation. Always remember how you came in this world. Straight, black, and proud, and that's the way you better leave it.
Well, here's what. So many things are still unresolved because I want to get into this thing about mulattoes with you, since that seems to be something that you very rarely hear. The question of the mulatto question, and certainly that came up Plessy v. Ferguson, and certainly that still remains afoot now. So, you know what? Let's make a deal now that if y'all can, we'll do this next week.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we'll get into that. We'll make sure that we deal with this thing. So there will be too much confusion if we don't deal with this whole situation with respect to mulattoes and some other things that are unresolved. But I like the position, especially what you said, Ted, with respect to culture, that yes, it might have existed, but that does not mean it was approved of. It was shunned and condemned in the strongest of terms. And you see that even in places in the Caribbean. It will be shunned and condemned. However, when you have Secretary Clinton as a Secretary of State force-feeding it on African countries, force-feeding it on Caribbean countries, and punishing them economically and in terms of other services that would be rendered as a trade-off to make sure that they condone homosexuality and just that gay lifestyle and allow them to promote it in whatever way they see fit. So we'll explore some of those things. Just want to say to the black community, vote wisely 2 days from now, Thursday. Vote your conscience. Vote in your best interest. Black man, black woman, protected black child. Accept your own and be yourself. I love what they said because they were very unapologetic about this situation. And certainly they are politically astute. They have the acumen to defend their ideas, and we'll have time next week. We'll make sure that they are in a position to defend their ideas, and we'll put them to the test and see can they do it. In any event, stay strong, and thank you to our staff, certainly Veronica Kidd, Nat Wood, Sheila Berry, and all those who help us. Peace.